What would a tale of warfare and patriotism be without the intrigue of a little espionage? Mr. Fiddler and his crew picked up 15 Korean intelligence agents who were to gather information on the mainland and relay it to the Lind. However, when you play for two sides at once, something is bound to backfire. And as many of our listeners know, fire and explosions were but a daily occurrence aboard a destroyer. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Ping Jockey podcast. I'm Marley, the co-host, sitting here with the Ping Jockey himself, Mr. Kenneth H. Fiddler. So, Mr. Fiddler, can you tell us about the day that you and your crew were informed that you were to pick up intelligence agents?
On February 1st, we were sent to Bukuko, Korea, to pick up 15 Korean intelligence agents and 2 American agents. 2 or 3 of the men were officers, and they were assigned bunks in the officers' quarters. The rest were enlisted men, so they were assigned bunks in our department. When they came aboard, we noticed that they were pretty dirty, and it didn't take long to tell that they didn't smell too good either. Some of the fellas got after them about taking baths. They could speak some English and refused to take a bath because if they were sent ashore smelling like a rose, they would stick out like a sore thumb, and we would soon be discovered as spies. So we just had to put up with a bad smell.
So what happened next? What was their mission like?
Well, the next day, we proceeded to Wonsan. We were supposed to drop off the ROK agents, but the weather was too rough for a boat. The following day, we were sent to pick up survivors of the sunken AMS Partridge that hit a mine. It turned out that we weren't needed, so we proceeded to Chongqing to drop off our intelligence party. On the morning of February 4th, we dropped off the ROK agents. Then we proceeded south, bombarding the coast as we went. Men in charge of the intelligence party was the Republic of Korean Major. He stayed aboard our ship so he could communicate to the agents by radio. We were supposed to come back at a prearranged time and establish contact with the agents. If they had any information to give us, that was the way we got it then and passed it on to headquarters.
But something happened. Something wasn't right.
Yeah. On February 5th, we returned to the place where we had dropped them off and tried to establish radio contact. After a while, someone answered, saying it was the ROK agents. But right away, the major knew there was something wrong. He told us it wasn't them and that they were being impersonated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's not very good. We continued to talk to them, and they said they were all right, but they needed money, food, and guns. We told them we had to go to Busan to get everything, and that we would be back in 2 nights. After a fast trip to Busan, we arrived back to our previous location off the coast of Korea where we had dropped off our agents. It was dark, and we soon re-established radio contact with the men on the shore. After talking to them for a while, the major still insisted that they were not his agents, even though they claimed to be. They asked whether we brought them food, money, and guns. We told them that we did, and that we would start bringing everything into them by boat. Because it was dark, they couldn't see us out at sea, so we slowly moved the ship in a little closer to shore.
What happened next?
We had two of our fellows communicating with walkie-talkies to each other, even though they were still on the ship.
A decoy.
If the enemy was listening over the radio, it sounded to them as if we were sending in a boat. The fellow on the walkie-talkie number 1 said, "We had a boat in the water, and now we are on our way in toward the beach." Walkie-talkie number 2 replied, "Let us know when you can see the beach." In the meantime, we called the people on the beach and told them that a boat was on the way with the supplies they requested. We waited for a reasonable length of time, and then the walkie-talkie number 1 said, "We were about halfway into the beach, but because of extreme high swells, we are having difficulty in seeing the beach." Then walkie-talkie number 2 responded, "Roger, we will see what we can do." Then our ship called the people on the beach and explained that our boat was having trouble seeing the beach due to the weather. We asked them if they could have so many people as possible come down on the beach to help unload the boat. We asked if they could shine a light straight up in the air to help the boat find them. They called back and said they would do that. By that time, our ship had eased in closer to shore, and pretty soon we were able to see the light shining in the air. All our guns were trained on this position, and soon we opened fire on them. Our major said that they started to swear at us in Korean, and then suddenly the radio went quiet. I don't know whether we ever found out any more about how many people we might have killed that night, but we did find out that 3 of our agents had been killed. The rest were all right and a little farther north. The major was right. Those men were imposters.
Wow. That's a lot of excitement on the ship.
Gave us something to think about.
Yeah, a little entertainment.
During the same time, we worked with the ROK agents. We also operated with some of the other ships in our division. They were the destroyer English, Zowers, Bory, and Osborne. The English was our division flagship, and we were Division 161. Although we didn't always sail together, there were quite a few ships in our division, including the Lynn, the Massey and Sperry, and the Hank. As usual, we did a lot of shore bombarding, and we patrolled the coast from the north and south on Wonsan Harbor. We had to ensure that the enemy didn't get in or out. Unfortunately, shore batteries sank a minesweeper that was working with us. The communists claimed they sank 2 destroyers, but in truth, it was 1 minesweeper, and they hit the destroyer Osborne. The damage was very slight. We spent a lot of time looking for survivors from the minesweeper, but didn't find any.
Did you have any other interaction with any other spies?
After we lost our 3 agents, we picked up more of them at Busan and dropped them off behind the lines. We continued our other duties with ships in our division, and I believe we were the only ship that was working with the agents. I know that it was very top secret. We weren't allowed to talk about it to anyone, and especially not writing home about it. One time the captain said that although we would never read in the newspaper about what we were doing on those secret missions, someday we could tell our grandchildren about it.
And what were you guys doing on those secret missions?
On February 6th, we proceeded north to Chongjin to talk to our intelligence men on the beach. Then we did some shore bombarding. 2 days later, we bombarded the beach around Kongshamn. Later, we proceeded to Pohang, where we dropped off some intelligence men. After we headed to Wonsan for a brief time, we rendezvoused with the HMAS Warramunga and proceeded to Chongqing, Korea. At 2000, we established a communication with the Chongqing intelligence team. Upon completion, we proceeded to Busan. On February 12th, we arrived in Busan at about 0800. While the captain and some of our officers were ashore in a meeting, we went ashore and had a beer party. We got underway for Wonsan at 2200. On February 13th at 0500, we rendezvoused with the USS English above the 38th parallel. We dropped off an intelligence party at 2000, just a few miles south of Wonsan. On Valentine's Day, we spent the day patrolling and furnishing fire support for troops above the 38th parallel. The following day, we were off the coast of Korea and north of the enemy lines. The major directed us to point where he thought there were some enemy troops. A little later, we got close enough to shore to see some buildings and some people near the beach. We could see that there were soldiers, but also it looked like there might be women and children. The major ordered the captain to fire on them, and the captain said, "There are women and children." The major replied, "Little communists, big communists, fire!" And we fired. I don't know how many we killed, but it was too many. We then proceeded to Chongjin with the USS Osborne, and we put an intelligence team ashore, and then we bombarded the railroad that ran along the coast. We also bombarded a small village.
What was the Lind up to while you guys weren't picking up or dropping off intelligence agents?
Well, on February 16th, we proceeded to Wonsan and anchored in the inner harbor about 1700. We bombarded targets all night, and we began to concentrate bombardment on Wonsan along with many United Nations ships. The effort was designed to disrupt communist traffic through the key city on the East Coast supply and reinforcement route from Manchuria. Ships involved including our sister ship, the English, the battleship Missouri, and many ships from other nations. Navy marksmanship proved itself as our destroyers hit moving locomotives from a range of several miles while pitching and rolling in the heavy seas. The morning of the 17th, we left for Chongjin, where we established contact with the intelligence team. We bombarded the town the rest of the evening. The day after, we refueled and rearmed at sea. We then proceeded to Wonsan so that we could send in supplies to the intelligence teams. By the 20th, We had bombarded Inner Wonsan Harbor and established contact with the intelligence team and sent in the supplies. We also picked up the pilot of a corsair that was shot down in enemy waters. He was all right except for being half frozen. The Lynn, Osborne, and Sperry were all shot at by shore batteries. It didn't take long to silence the batteries with our guns.
Now, when your ship picked up a shot-down pilot, did you guys get anything special for that?
Well, but we were lucky. And if they had enough ice cream, when we return a pilot, we get a lot of ice cream to eat a while.
That was a nice reward.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
On February 21st, we bombarded shore batteries until 1200. We then proceeded to buoy number 4, communicate with the shore intelligence party. The next day we got underway to meet the replenishing group. We refueled at sea from a tanker and then transferred our pilot back to the aircraft carrier while aboard. We then proceeded to Busan. By February 23rd, we fired our 6,000th 5-inch shell since being in Korea. For each shell, there was also a big powder case to handle. That was quite a bit of shooting and ammunition handling. I remember around that time, on one side of the ship was a big pile of all these powder shells, which we didn't throw overboard yet. I think that's what we eventually did. On the 24th of February, we pulled into Busan for supplies and then met up with the hospital ship Constellation. This was the same ship that was in Hungnam. They sent me over to it again, and I got the same dentist that I had when I went to the dentist in Hungnam. He filled 2 teeth, and he told me that I'd better soon have one of my mortars pulled before it gave me trouble. We left Busan again by midnight and headed back to Wonsan with more ROK intelligence men. And on February 25th to the 27th, we spent our time in the inner harbor in Wonsan for shore bombardment. During the day and at night, we anchored near buoy number 4 and communicating with our intelligence team on the beach. We left on the 28th and proceeded north about 50 miles to do some shore bombarding and then dropped off our intelligence team. We then proceeded back to the inner harbor in Wonsan for more shore bombardment until dark and then back to buoy 4. On March 1st, the captain made one of his famous speeches. We were originally scheduled to go in the Navy Yard on the East Coast about May 1st, but they decided they needed us out there longer than they had originally expected. So we're scheduled for the Navy Yard about June 14th. That sure was disappointing. The next day, the weather started to turn real cold, and the sea was getting pretty rough and uncomfortable.
Well, that sure is foreboding. Especially considering that they extended your service an extra month and a half just about, and you were expecting a baby right around that time.
No, some news never is very good.
No news would have been better. Well, you still haven't gotten out of Korea quite yet, but in next week's episode we get some good news and we'll hear how this all concludes. This is Marley and the Ping Jockey signing off.
Bye-bye.